Hey, Dr. Bill Sinyard here. Welcome to God's Love for the Unlovable. Here is a report on the dangerous state of teenage addiction. And we're going to be throwing a lot of data and statistics at you. I apologize for that, but it's important to hear. You may need to listen to this a couple of times. Share this video with others. Share it with school administrators, homeschooling groups, youth group leaders, other parents. They will thank you. You know, we've known for a long time that because of the dramatic changes that are happening in the adolescent brain, that they are very addiction prone. And we need to lean into that graciously, but with gospel tools. And that's what we'll be talking about. Check it out. So welcome back. At God's Love for the Unlovable, we're focused on helping addicts, including teenage addicts, to get free and helping friends and families of addicts know better how they can come alongside and help addicts. And we can do both better using the gospel in particular. Well, here's some information. The latest CDC report, Youth Risk Behavior Survey Data, Summary and Trends Report 2011 to 2021, is not specifically just about teenage addiction, but once you dig into the numbers, it's all there. It's true, adolescents remain very addiction prone. So drug use in adolescence is a very risky proposition. Even small degrees of substance abuse, for example, alcohol, marijuana, inhalants, can have negative consequences. Typically, school and relationships, notably family relationships, are among the life areas that are most influenced by drug use and abuse. Preoccupation with drugs can crowd out previously important, valuable activities, and the way the teen views their self may be changing in unrealistic directions enhanced by drug use or alcohol use or porn. So persistent patterns of drug use or addictive activities in adolescence are a sign that there are problems in the teen's environment as well. No judgment, I'm just saying, and those need to be addressed immediately. What is it about adolescence that makes drug use so dangerous? Well, adolescence is characterized by a period of developmental changes in the brain particularly, and it happens between roughly 10 and 19 years of age. During that time, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, parents, your little boys and girls' body is going to be experiencing a vast array of changes, and some of the behavioral changes contribute to a greater likelihood of initiating substance abuse or addictive behavior. More than 50% of substance use initiation cases occur between the ages of 15 and 19. Adolescent drug use can also negatively impact ongoing neurodevelopment, which might contribute to the risk of cognitive impairment and psychopathology later on. For instance, shooting up schools, right? While there is some significant bad news in the CDC report, particularly related to girls and those in same-sex relationships, LGBTQ+, and those latter two are very troubling, there is some silver lining related to substance abuse in some categories. Gen Z seems to be less interested in drugs. So here's some promising results comparing 2011 with 2021. Those who reported drinking alcohol went down 41%. Marijuana use went down 30%. To the question, have you ever used illicit drugs? The answer went down 31%. Only 18% use vape products, and that number is on a severe decline. 12% say they have misused prescription opioids, also a decline. Sexual activity for ages 15 to 24 is down 36% from 2011. But amidst all the numbers in the report, there's bad news centered within three groupings that it's worth knowing about and leaning into with the gospel, helping these apply the simple, uncluttered gospel better. Here it is. Female drug and alcohol use has ramped up in comparison to males. 27% of female respondents currently drank alcohol. 15% had misused prescription opioids. That's a sharp contrast to the 19% and 10% respectively for their male counterparts. Females were 22% more likely than males to use marijuana, 28% more likely to use vape pens, 20% more likely to select illicit drugs, and 33% more likely to misuse opioids. Blacks and Hispanics tend to misuse opioids more than white kids and use marijuana slightly more. White kids tend to use other illicit drugs more and vape products. The worst substance abuse numbers are associated with those who identified as having same-sex contacts, compared to those who self-reported having other sex contacts. All right, so the ones with same-sex contacts were 15% more likely to drink alcohol, 34% more likely to smoke marijuana, 48% more likely to use illicit drugs, and 59% more likely to use illegal opioids. No judgment, I'm just giving you the facts. It's something that we, the church, need to lean into to help everybody with the gospel. But here are the results per the CDC, and you're going to hear the theme. In 2021, 23% of high school students drank alcohol during the past 30 days. Female students were more likely than male students to currently drink alcohol. White students were more likely than Asian, Black, and Hispanic students to currently drink alcohol. Black students were less likely than students from nearly all other racial and ethnic groups to currently drink alcohol. LGBTQ plus students and students with any same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to be currently drinking alcohol. In 2021, 16% of high school students used marijuana during the past 30 days. Female students more likely than male. Black students were more likely than Asian, Hispanic, and white students to currently use marijuana. LGBTQ plus students and students with any same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to currently use marijuana. In 2021, 13% of high school students had ever used certain illicit drugs, so cocaine, inhalants, heroin, methamphetamines, hallucinogens, ecstasy. Female students were more likely than male students to have ever used select illicit drugs. Asian, Blacks were less likely than students from nearly any other racial and ethnic groups to have ever used illicit drugs. LGBTQ plus students and students with same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to have ever used select illicit drugs. 2021, 12% of high school students had ever taken prescription pain medicines without a doctor's prescription. Again, female students were more likely to have ever misused prescription opioids than male students. LGBTQ plus students and students with same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to have ever used prescription opioids. In 2021, 6% of high school students misused prescription opioids such as codeine, Vicodin, Oxycontin, hydrocodone, or Percocet during the past 30 days. Female students were more likely than male students to currently misuse prescription opioids. Black and Hispanic students were more likely than Asian and white students to currently misuse prescription opioids. LGBTQ plus students and students who had any same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to currently misuse prescription opioids. You get the theme? So why the negative, troubling numbers in certain demographic categories? Well, it turns out that they're the very same categories that are experiencing violence and a sense of hopelessness and sadness. You likely remember the tragic suicide of 14-year-old Adriana Couch back in February. She told her father that she could not bear the humiliation after she was attacked by another girl inside her New Jersey high school, and a clip of the assault was posted to TikTok. She said, "I don't want to be that girl who gets beat up on video and made fun of." Adriana's father, Michael Couch, recalled his daughter saying as they sat in the kitchen of their home in Bayville, "Can you imagine walking through the school with her face beat in?" he asked. The day after the February 1st assault, Adriana retreated to her room at about 10 p.m. and took her own life during the night. Violence to adolescent girls is way on the rise. And many, we believe, are turning to drugs and alcohol to deal with the anxiety and the shame. Same with so many LGBTQ plus children. Per the CDC, female students, LGBTQ plus students, and students who had any same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to experience violence. Nearly 20% of female students experienced sexual violence by someone. Nearly 15% had ever been forced to have sex. Nearly 1/4, 25% of LGBTQ plus students were bullied at school, and nearly 30% were electronically bullied. Oh my goodness. I mean, although there was no change in the percentage of students overall who had ever been forced to have sex from 2011 to 2021, the percentage of female students and white students who had ever been forced to have sex increased. In 2021, 15% of high school students were bullied on school property during the past year. Female students were more likely than male students to be bullied at school. Black students were less likely than students from most other racial and ethnic groups to be bullied at school. Thank God, that's an improvement. LGBTQ plus students and students who had any same-sex partners were more likely than all of their peers to be bullied in school. Look, I believe that the core issue that's driving the increased drug abuse is the severe declining mental health of our youth. I mean, due to violence and due to family breakdown and due to so many things, but it's mental health primarily. And no doubt it's cyclical. Hopelessness and isolation lead to drug abuse, which leads to more hopelessness and isolation, which leads to more drug abuse, which leads to more sadness, and then you just wash, rinse, and repeat. But again, the real issue is mental health. And two terms that I've used before: do the students feel enoughness? And do they feel connectedness either at home, with their peers, or with God? And the answer is increasingly no. Are you experiencing persistent feeling of sadness and hopelessness? 42% of the respondents said yes. That's up 50% from 2011. Are you experiencing poor mental health in the last 30 days? 29% of the respondents said yes. Are you seriously considering attempting suicide? 22%. 1 out of 5 respondents said yes. That's up 36% from 2011. Have you made a suicide plan? 18% said yes. That's up 38% from 2011. Have you attempted suicide? 10% of the respondents, up 137% from 2011, said yes. Back to the CDC report. Quote, poor mental health can result in serious negative outcomes for the health and development of adolescents, which can last into adulthood. Young people who feel hopeless about their future are more likely to engage in behaviors that put them at risk for HIV, STDs, and unintended pregnancy. Suicide risk, measured here by increasing levels of suicide ideation, plans, and attempts, not only places the life of the adolescent at risk, but is also a marker for experience with trauma and other mental health issues. And once again, the groups that experienced the lowest mental health numbers were the same: female students, LGBTQ+, and students who had any same-sex partners were more likely than their peers to experience poor mental health, suicidal thoughts, and behaviors. Nearly 60% of female students and nearly 70%, almost 3/4 of LGBTQ+ students experience persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. 10% of female students and more than 20% of LGBTQ+ students attempted suicide. Wow, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5. The percentage of students across every racial and ethnic group who felt persistently sad or hopeless increased. The percentage of female students who seriously considered attempting suicide, made a suicide plan, attempted suicide increased. 57% of female respondents had experienced persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness during the last year, compared to 29% of male students, a 49% difference. 78% of those who reported same-sex contact compared to 50% of those who reported only opposite-sex contact. 41% of females reported poor mental health in the last 30 days, 41% compared to 18% of the males. 54% of those with same-sex contacts. Steps forward, the CDC recommends leaning into 2 areas: connectedness at school and stable, secure housing at home. Yeah, I mean, that would help. That would help. And we're recommending that, by the way, but we're also recommending that Christian young adults and teenagers begin to really lean into accessing power from God in order to feel that connectedness and enoughness from God, at least. That would make a difference. And, I'm asking the CDC, what does it look like to make those changes? It would be very easy for parents to hear the numbers and ramp up discipline and boundaries. That could make things worse in some cases. Some of that might be in order, don't get me wrong, but the problem is much deeper in the mental health of their teenagers. And I had previous videos that talk about some of this was deeply wired in their psyche back when they were 1 and 2. With the gospel, we can do better. Here's a great quote from the secular, well-known psychiatrist of children, Urie Bronfenbrenner. Every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. Every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. Think of that teenage girl. Think about that teenage LGBTQ boy or girl. This is what every teen is jonesing for, and it makes sense, right? Their developing brain is not addicted to alcohol or crack or opioids or even porn or sex. They're longing for the dopamine hits that come from two sources, enoughness and connectedness. Enoughness. Enoughness is related to your present experience and value of your worth in your own eyes and your perception of how others see you. Attachment theory posits that a child's subconscious sense of enoughness has been hardwired into their inner working models to one degree or another already. Listen carefully and you'll hear the word enough everywhere, especially when it comes to the anxiety, loneliness, exhaustion, and division that plague our moments to such tragic proportions. You'll hear about people scrambling to be successful enough, happy enough, thin enough, wealthy enough, influential enough, desired enough, charitable enough, woke enough, good enough. We believe that instinctively, were we to reach some benchmark in our minds, then value, vindication, and love would be ours. That if we got enough, we would be enough. Our kids are looking for enoughness. They're using drugs and participating in addictive activities in order to mask the pain of lack of enoughness. Connectedness. Connectedness, or better, fear of disconnectedness, refers to feelings of being alone, isolated, not being in life-giving relationships, or thinking that you're not worthy of loving and being loved. It also refers to the individual's composite experience of relationships. And so now their present expectation for their relationships. Have they been safe relationships, healthy, life-giving, secure, or the opposite? Think of it like this. Loneliness creates a hunger in the brain, and our brains signal deep dissatisfaction. We become restless, irritable, and impulsive. If we don't have the ability to connect socially, we're so ravenous for our social neurochemistry to be rebalanced, we're likely to seek relief from anywhere. And if that anywhere is opioid painkillers or heroin, it's going to be a heat-seeking missile for our social reward system. Is it any wonder people in today's world are becoming addicted so easily? Drugs and alcohol are such powerful dopamine-producing counterfeits, but each has dangerous consequences that harm our child and their future. Remember, your adolescent's prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until they're 20 to 25, and that's part of the brain that asks the question, I wonder if that's a good idea. It's offline. So their subconscious midbrain is chasing and demanding dope hits. Gabor Mate says activities such as eating or sexual contact also promote the presence of dopamine in that synaptic space between the neurons, right? Food seeking can increase brain dopamine levels in some key brain centers by 50%, so teens overeat. Sexual arousal will do so by a factor of 100%, so teens will have sex, as will nicotine and alcohol, and so teens smoke and drink. But none of those can compete with cocaine, which more than triples dopamine levels. Yet cocaine is even a miser compared to crystal meth or speed, whose dopamine-enhancing effects is an astounding 1,200%. Mate reports that one addict called crystal meth's effect on her as an orgasm without sex. So you can see how disconnected and not enough teens might find drugs useful. So instead, we're suggesting connectedness, particularly with an adult who is irrationally crazy about them, can actually become a healthy source of dopamine that can reduce the need for other sources. One of our passions here at God's Love for the Unlovable is to help frustrated and weary Christian parents of teens and tweens become more good enough parents. The CDC may say that's a good idea, but you've probably tried already. You've been working hard at this, right? That's why we created Good Enough Parent, goodenoughparent.online. So do it. As of right now, it's free, it's confidential, it's totally online, any smart device. Once you register, we'll send you 15 biblical short video parent tips, one a day for 15 days. Good Enough Parent is the attachment theory term that refers to the practice of enough attunement. So if parents of infants really attune with their infants' 3 out of 10 interactions, and attunement is this eye-to-eye contact that lights up both brains. But by the way, we're suggesting the exact same thing happens during adolescence. If you can, in your context, connect with your teen 3 out of 10 times that way, things will get better. Not perfectly, but they will get better. You don't have to do 9 out of 10 interactions that way, or even 6, 3 out of 10. Yeah? One participant through Good Enough Parents said she was encouraged that even she could do 3. So here's the thing, no judgment, no shame. You may come to the program a 2 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. And our goal is to help you move incrementally towards the 10. That's a win, right? www.goodenoughparent.online. Look, take a look at this trailer for the Good Enough Parent curriculum online. Hey, welcome parent or caregiver or guardian. Dr. Bill Sinyard here. Good Enough Parent is made up of 15 biblical, relevant, powerful, helpful tips sent to you every day for 15 days. It's designed to help good enough parents become more good enough parents. Sorry for the bad grammar, but the program is shame-free. And listen, we get it, parents. Parenting is tough. Real tough. I mean, who knows if we're doing a good job? We don't usually know, not for sure. And then adolescence hits, puberty overshadows everything, peer pressure oozes from every nook and cranny. Of course, pandemics and social unrest and division, incivility, economic swings, acne, baby food shortages, and then social media, which we've been learning has a dark side. Someone has described adolescence that it felt like their child had walked past a leaking nuclear reactor. Look, all parents feel what you're feeling. We're all out of our wheelhouse trying to keep up, but it seems that often we go from conflict to conflict to conflict, blow up to blow up, and there's little we seem to be able to do about it to stop it. And it feels like we're driving without a steering wheel, or maybe without brakes. How we were raised seems irrelevant now, and things have dramatically changed so much we can't get off that steep learning curve. Some parents are just trying to survive, trying to make ends meet relationally and with their jobs and emotionally and financially. Am I right? And then there are the sweeping biblical standards that seem to mock us sometimes. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Well, yeah, but have you met my child? It is a lot of pressure. How effective do I need to be? 80%, 75%? And do I start now, or have I already messed it up? Oh yeah, you will hear us speak of the good enough parent. Right now, toss away any notion that you might have of being a perfect parent. It's bad theology. Only God is the perfect parent. You are not. Scientists speak of the good enough parent being the one who is a great parent at least 30% of the time. Well, that's very helpful, and it might just be doable. Good Enough Parent is made up of 15 short, provocative, helpful, gospel-immersed, shame-free tips. Many you have never heard before. And by the way, here is some feedback from real parents who have been through Good Enough Parent. One wrote, "I love the repeated message. We are not trying to be more like God. We are trying to depend on Him more." You'll see what we mean. Another parent wrote, "I am now more able to take a step back when we have arguments and not get so offended by what my daughter is saying." Another, This whole program was exactly what I needed. The most beneficial reminder was that I just need to get 30% right to be a good enough parent. So if you're listening to this video, I'm telling you, you can do this. Press the Get Started Now button below and you will get a single short video every day for 15 days. Enjoy. Welcome, parent, guardian, caregiver, to Good Enough Parent. So in a sense, I'm suggesting that in this stage of their brain development, adolescence, this behavior is not all their fault. They're not able to fully ask the question, hey, is that a good idea? They're not truly able to emotionally self-regulate all of the new jazzy hormones that are going through their body. They need a trusted adult who they know loves them, enoughness, and who has their back no matter what, connectedness. Schools are not designed to fill that role. Their peers are not equipped to do that. They can help, they can provide safe places, but they can't be what parents are called to be. Again, no shame, we're going to give you some skills. Here are some things that your child is longing to hear from you, again, in your context, in your situation. Right? So imagine your hands on the back of your child, you're looking at them, you've drawn them close, you're looking at them eye to eye, you have their contact, phones are off, and you say, I want you to know just how much I adore you as you are. I don't agree with all of your decisions, but hear this, I'm not going anywhere. I'm with you to the end, no matter what you did or said hurt me, but I'm not going anywhere. I would buy stock in you still. You're one of those special people that could change the world. I can't wait to see what God has in mind for you. Yeah? You may not be able to imagine that. And by the way, at this point, they may not trust hearing that from your mouth, parent, but that's okay. We take baby steps towards that end. And thanks to the CDC for tracking these issues, Christians, we can make a difference in the lives of our children and our generation. The gospel is the power to believe. Believe what? Well, among so many other things, to believe and experience just how much Jesus loves us and them as we are and as they are, not as we or they should be. And that love's transformative. It has the power to push against even the strongest of addictions. Trust us. Please share this video with family, parents, Christian school admins, your church youth leaders, homeschool groups. They will thank you. Feedback, bill@gospel-app.com. Check out my podcast, Gospel Rant, on any of your podcast platforms and make sure you follow. Take heart, child of God.